Alright, guns or woodworking. Another one where I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I certainly know what I like, right? It's just like art. So, guns and wood have been hand in hand for a long time until just recently when you can now create a gun, I guess, without any wood at all. But whenever there's wood and firearms, you've got the potential for creativity and I think, again, a lot of topics. So just to take a step aside here to mention why we're doing this series called Guns Are, and why we're posting these videos. They really have nothing going on the screen. It's just a white screen that the words Guns Are. And then in this case it says woodworking, because we're talking about woodworking, and we've got the Minuteman University little logo thing over there. But the idea is to start conversations, to have topics thrown out there into the group, and to take those and use them as topics for discussions, as topics for videos, as topics for projects, as topics for blogs, and then to share them around and to use it as a way to stir it up, so that we can see what everybody's take is, different people's take is on these concepts, and hopefully use them when we have conversations with people. Gun prohibitionists manage to throw out some boilerplate, some regurgitated taglines, and they're not really in the game. They're not expecting a real conversation about the nuance and the actual implications with guns in society. So that's sort of the point of this series, and we'll get back to woodworking here. So again, I've used a chisel, I've used a saw, and I've used a power tool here and there to cut wood, to make wood, to shape wood, and to do things practically and artistically, but never professionally, never on a production level. But guns offer every level of experience with woodworking, from hand tools to the basic crude stuff, to the newest, through the innovation and the creation of it all. I've seen such neat things when we talk about woodworking. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is some stock blanks, some pieces of wood that were cut into the crude, rough shape of stocks, wooden stocks for World War II firearms, rifles, and I've seen those at Wanamaker for sale. So someone probably bought those surplus, or they adopted from the factory at some point during production, and now they're just out there in the market, and they're just some wooden blanks from World War II, the kind of things that would have been fed into the machines to make stocks. I think these were for Garands or Springfields or something. So there's that aspect of people who are going to buy the raw material, either for collector's value or, I guess, potentially to try to carve a stock out of it. But when I think of those blanks, I can think of some of the photographs I've seen. I haven't yet visited any of the factories to see in real life, but I've seen the pictures of the big duplicating machines, or the carving machines that they would put those blanks into and carve out maybe six or half a dozen, well, six is a half a dozen stocks at a time, and one person can supervise all that production being done, and then pulls them all out of there, puts some blanks in there. That kind of stuff is pretty neat. Then you get into, I've been to some importers' warehouses, I guess you'd call it, and just seen, just uncountable number of stocks just stacked like cordwood, like firewood, one perpendicular, and then stacked row after row, chest high. Just the amount of wood that has been used for rifle stocks is amazing. Anyway, so you think of all of that, you think of all the AK stocks and all the Mosin Nagants and all the other World War II stuff that had wooden stocks, and then you think about all those soldiers that were carrying them around, either in the most dire of circumstances or the most boring and peaceful of circumstances. Either way, you end up turning on your rifle sometimes depending on the circumstances, again, as a item of stress relief. And a knife or a rock or anything really can end up allowing you to woodwork to adorn or to carve a stock or a grip or a handguard. So I've seen all kinds of trench art. That's an aspect to it. I can now think about some of the kits that when I was a kid you'd buy the black powder kits to just assemble a firearm that is fairly harmless, and you'd get a rough, crude form of the hand. I guess you'd call it what would you call it? A stock, I guess is what they call it on an old Derringer pistol. And you'd have to sometimes just do the finishing on it, or sometimes you'd do a little bit of carving. And then, of course, you can do the ornate type of woodworking, the carving, and carve something crude into there. Some of the Indian Wars, they had some interesting, fairly crude adornment or modifications to their wooden parts of their rifles. You can always engrave metal as well. We'll probably talk about that in a different video, though. So that's just my experiences. It's just some stuff coming off the top of my head, thinking about woodworking. But we're going to take the topic of woodworking and run with it. As far as firearms go, I can assume that there's probably whole industries. I'm going to assume, because I don't know for certain, that there's probably industries that have evolved when something is factory or something is set up to make stocks like that. What do they do with those machines when they don't need to make stocks? Are they making oars? Are they making guitars? I don't know. Are they making some part of a wagon? Like, what does that do to the economy or to the industry or to transportation or whatever when all of a sudden there's this new ability? And I don't know if maybe I'm crazy, maybe that hasn't happened, but that's again the kind of what we're trying to do here with this series, just to throw some stuff out there to create conversation, stir the waters a little bit in a different way. So let us know in the comments what you think. Feel free to be part of this conversation wherever you happen to catching it, over on gunstreamer.com, over on guntube.org, or wherever else. And thanks for being part of the conversation.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourage you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thanks for watching GunWebsites.com.